Thank you. Thank you, Minister Brendan Howlin. Welcome to the Labour Party conference here in Mullingar. I'm Nora Casey, and I'll be moderating this session, where those of you in the room get to ask questions. Those of you at home can join us on social media. And here on stage, well, I'll be joined by the people who have the answers. Well, that's the plan. I'll be saying stand up a lot, not to get you to jump to your feet, but those of you in the know will know that Labour's key themes for the forthcoming election are standing up for working people, for jobs, for families and for modern Ireland. And this morning our panellists will be addressing those very issues. The technical crew here in the room are streaming live, so you can also follow us in the virtual world by logging on to labour.ie. Our social media, you can find us on Twitter @Labour, and if you want to keep an eye on us on Facebook, well, you can do just that. We're using two hashtags today, hashtag LP16 and hashtag StandUp16. Our first panel is Standing Up for Working People, and joining me with Minister Howlin of Wexford, who you just heard, are Derek Nolan, TD Galway West, Ciara Conway, TD Waterford, Senator Lorraine Higgins, Galway East, Joanna Tuffy, TD for Dublin Midwest, Minister Alex White, Dublin Rathdown, Kieran Lynch, TD Cork South Central, and Senator Susan O'Keefe of Sligo. Now, our first question on the floor is from Jack Eustace. You're very welcome, Jack. Off you go.
Thanks very much. The country's undoubtedly in a better position now than it was when Labour took office in 2011. My question is, how do we make sure that working people feel the benefits in their everyday lives without putting the recovery at risk?
Okay, Jack, well, if I'm reading you correctly, it's how do you make them feel that the recovery is happening where it matters, in their pockets? Minister Howlin, can I go to you first, and can you talk to us about the universal social charge?
Sure. The tax plan we have laid out last night is to reward work, to ensure that low and middle income earners take home more of the money that they earn by the sweat of their brow. So we're going to abolish universal social charge for all incomes up to €72,000. Between 72 and €100,000, it'll be capped. You'll still get the benefit of the 72, but you won't get any more. And we're going to claw it back beyond 100,000, so the very high earners on 120,000 plus will get no benefit from our plan. The idea is to put more money into workers' pockets, and we're going to supplement that by also tweaking the PRSI system so that the very lowest paid between 18,000 and up to 36,000 get an extra bonus on top of that. We're going to make work pay.
Brendan, can I just ask you, when is that going to happen?
We're going to do it in 5 budgets, incrementally. We've costed, it'll cost about €3 billion to do what we want, but in 5 steps we will achieve that incrementally, year by year, between now and 2020.
Jack asked the question, so I assume he knows better than most, but what's your sense? Do people feel, like we talk about the recovery and we talk about the stats and the fastest growing in Europe, do people at this moment in time really feel in their pockets that they're going through a recovery, that they're on the upturn?
I think a lot of people don't. I think the recovery is mixed, even geographically. I mean, we always knew the main urban centres would benefit first, but that's why we have a regional strategy in terms of the jobs focus, and Joan has from the very start insisted that everybody focus like a laser on getting people back to work. Labour is the party of work. Our strategy in every department has been to facilitate people back in work. And the biggest success in the economic data we can present is the falling unemployment rate, because the fear of unemployment and the fear of forced immigration was the thing that I think seared all of us in 2011. We can now provide hope, and it's because the Labour Party was at the heart of the decision making that sense of hope is there. And in a way, it's perverse when you talk to people now. The fear is gone. People don't fear the calamity that overwhelmed us in 2011, and they want to know exactly what a recovered Ireland will look like. And that's why they want a centre-left party at the heart of decision-making.
We might come back actually on the recovery plan, but Derek, can I go to you? If you leave Galway, you're here in Mullingar, I'm looking for you to go a little bit global. Right, so obviously universal social charge wasn't a very popular tax, and what Brendan is saying is it's going to be gone over 5 budgets, and that's based on the premise that we're in a period of recovery and we're not going to hit the buffers again. If you were to scan the horizon, do you see any potential threats out there? I mean, almost daily somebody says, oh, we're in a bubble, it's going to burst again. When you look at China and the volatility, or Brexit, what do you think the threats are there potentially for the next government?
I mean, I think there are threats, and if you're not honest with people if you don't acknowledge that Ireland is an open trading economy that is influenced by how other economies are performing. I mean, if Europe does bad, we do bad. If the United States does bad, we do bad. And there are a number of things out there that are a few red flag issues. We have to look at the slowdown in China. And you can see that that's impacting already on currencies and starting to impact on transport costs and the oil price that we're seeing plummeting, which is great for us all getting the diesel at the pumps. But that is happening because there's something going on in the world economy. Also, our nearest neighbour, the UK, which is our largest trading partner, I mean, over half of our exports go to the United Kingdom, are going to have a referendum in just a few months to decide whether they're going to stay or leave the European Union, the so-called
And Derek,
Brexit.
is there good and bad in Britain leaving the European Union?
I mean, I'm sure there might be one or two positives, but the overall, I think it'd be bad for Ireland to lose our largest trading partner from the single market, and to lose a partner which we have many common policies when it comes to business, when it comes to how we run Europe as a way that works for our economy. And I think it would be bad. But look, listen, I'm canvassing on doors all the time in Galway, and but what I remember most is actually 5 years ago. I'm meeting people on the streets, knocking on doors. One woman in particular who was, I think, twice or 2.5 times my age. She had retired and lost every penny of her savings, everything she had worked for 40 years. And what people, we live in the now, we live in the next election, but people haven't recovered from that sense of loss from 5 years ago. And the one thing they want from their politics, and the one thing they want at this election, is something that's careful, that's planned, and that is realistic. And I think that the work we've done in our manifesto, as I was involved in, everything we're talking about today has been costed, has been planned, and is there to be done as long as we're careful and as long as we pay heed to those real serious risks, because economic recovery cannot be taken for granted.
No.
There are real dangers, and I think our record in government, and Brendan has really championed this, we have an excellent economic record, and we can be trusted with the economy.
Okay. Derek, can I go local actually to you, Ciara, because Dungarvan, we were talking about it last night, fantastic part of the country, and Waterford, but it was hit badly during the recession. I mean, all the various storms over Christmas prevented me from going out into the main streets, but how does it feel down there now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Waterford, it's well known, the unemployment rate was higher than the national average, but, we're starting to see real movement now following the national trend. People are starting to get back to work. I know that the live register figures between May of 14 and 15 dropped by 10%. Like, that's an incredible feat, I mean, the Southeast as well was one of the first places in the country to have an action plan for jobs, and we're starting to see the reality of that now. I mean, if you drive out towards the industrial part of Waterford, you can see cranes in the sky. And that's because there's a brand new pharmaceutical company, Westpharma, investing hundreds of millions of euros in a greenfield site, and we'll have about 300 additional jobs to all of the other jobs that are currently there. Because I think, there was a lot of things that were taken away by Fianna Fáil, and some of the things was the regional presence of the IDA. And that's something that this government, and the Labour Party in particular, were very vocal about. Because, as Brendan has said, the big urban centres are going to see the recovery first. But it's really important that all the elements of the state have a presence in the region. And I think that's what the Action Plan for Jobs, that's what this government has been about driving home the recovery to everybody, in their hometown, in their home city. And I mean, we've all been out on the doors now. This phony war still rages, and we wait for the election.
Are you all
to be
dying
called.
for it to be called?
Yeah, I know.
You must be.
Yeah, you must.
I think the whole country says, "Pop the question, Enda, will you? Get on with it."
Exactly. So, and what one of the happiest things that I've had in the last couple of weeks is been given voter registration forms to people who are after coming home from Australia.
That's a nice idea.
And it's a really good feeling. I met a young man, he was going to give out to me first because I nearly woke his little baby, but we got over that. Just home from Australia with his new baby, anxious to register to vote, anxious to, see a future for themselves here. I mean, and there's not a family in this room, in this country, people watching at home that haven't been touched in that way. My own sister just came home from America after 2 years and is working in Cork. We want to get her back to Waterford.
Get her back to Abbey's side and
we'll get her back.
Just on that very issue, actually, Lorraine, if I can turn to you and Athenry. So, are the fields low-lying, or are they?
The fields are very much alive these days as a result.
Because actually, we were talking about immigration, and Galway was hit very badly with young people leaving.
And there's no doubt about that. And, as Ciara mentioned there, like herself, I have met people on doorsteps as well who have returned. Yeah. And, when we have significant announcements like Apple, where they're putting 850 million euros worth of an investment in the likes of Athenry, that's going to give more confidence to other multinational investors to locate in Athenry and in rural towns throughout, I think, Ireland. And I suppose that's what this recovery should be about. It should be trickling down out from Dublin and into rural Ireland.
But even in Galway, there must be a sense of a twin-track economy between the city and the rest of the county.
Well, you know, this is one thing that I noticed when I contested the European election. Particularly at that point in time in 2014, there seemed to be a lot of recovery happening in the east coast of Ireland. Back then in 2014 in Galway, it was difficult for people. All our problems haven't been solved.
Yeah.
We're working towards them now. But people now are hopeful again. They're optimistic about their futures. Compared to 2011 when I was contesting the election, you know, there was a lot of hopelessness and despair. And it's great meeting people on doorsteps who are daring to hope again. And I think that's a very, very big positive from this government, because we have reduced the unemployment figures from 15.1% down to 8.8%. And as a result of that, our tax take is now higher. We can now invest in public services and look to the future and build a social recovery. And at the end of the day, that's only possible with stable government. And the Labour Party provides stable government.
That was a great question, Jack, by the way, and I know that we're going to go back to those themes later on, so we might keep in touch on it. But our next question comes from Fiona Dunn. You're very welcome, Fiona.
Thanks, Nora. Okay, my question for the panel is, now that we have emerged from a period of recession and have learned the lessons of how to manage the economy properly, how can Labour bring the country on through investment and stimulating further economic development?
Okay, and I guess, Fiona, what you mean by that is balancing, is it? Galloping ahead with the economy, but balancing it
Absolutely, for working
with the very issue we've just been talking about,
Yeah.
risks versus... Yeah, social change.
Absolutely.
Okay, Joanna, can I go to you? Because, you know, especially because you're in the commuter belt, and sometimes when we are galloping ahead in the economy, we don't get those areas caught up. We don't catch them up. You know, we don't build communities.
Well, I think, you know, my constituency in Dublin Midwest, it's, as you say, it does have a lot of the commuter belt.
Yeah.
So towns like Clondalkin, Lucan, Rathcoole,
Newcastle.
Saggart, Newcastle. And in those areas, obviously there's older settled communities, but there's a lot of new families as well. And during the recession and now, I think a very important issue is job creation. You know, because like I know a lot of people in my constituency who I represent who lost their jobs, or very often you had families where the couple were both working and one of them lost their job, so they were down substantially on their income. Now, there's been a lot of improvement in the last couple of years, like the live register has dropped by a third, and in Grange Castle, for example, which is a retail industrial park developed by South Dublin County Council. A number of multinationals have announced jobs there, like Microsoft and Google and Pfizer. And then in the Liffey Valley Shopping Centre, there's development there where Pennies are going to open in a month or so, and there's a number of new restaurants and things like that. So things are starting to happen in the constituency. But I think, you know, there's still a lot of people who need jobs, and they need to have the skills to get jobs. So I think it's very important that we invest in education, you know, and I think things like the Springboard initiative has been very successful, where unemployed people can study at third level for free, and it's usually in areas like technology. So, for example, I know somebody in my constituency who was unemployed and just recently got a first-class honour in digital literacy degree. So he's very much well placed to get employment now.
And we're going
things like that, you know.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more, because it's a critical issue, particularly in your area. Alex, can I come to you? So I suppose what's the big idea? Like, we've learned the harsh lesson of throwing all our eggs into one basket, and, you know, where's our big idea for growth? Is it about foreign direct investment, or is there another plan?
Well, I'd like to pick up on where Joanna left off, actually, because, you know, when you come out of Christmas and you need a bit of a lift, one of the great places to go is the Young Scientists exhibition. You could not be more inspired by the young people there from right across the country, a good few schools in my constituency. You get as a TD to go around and visit the projects in your own constituency, and then to see all the incredible energy and potential that there is in that building in those couple of days in January. Picking up on exactly that point that Joanna's making, because, you know, young people exhibiting there have actually got as good a grasp as any of us in this room have of the potential that's there for the future, particularly in the whole digital world and digital economy that's now actually developing. I mean, people are talking about a fourth industrial revolution. And we can theorize about that and write papers about it and try to understand it. But it's young people themselves that are actually picking up on these opportunities.
So one of the big growth areas will be these bright... They terrify me when I go to
No,
them. They're far
and
too clever.
you talk to people sometimes at the Young Science Exhibition, say, you know, well, what do you hope for the future? A job for life? They would laugh at the idea sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, some young people would think that the idea of a job for life is a threat. and not an opportunity. Many of us
And
think
my
a job
father
for
was
life.
saying,
But I think there's a serious point there, which is young people understand that the nature of work has changed, and we've got to follow that up as well. So the question is, what do we do to forward the recovery? We have got to invest. We've got to invest, as Joanna rightly says, in schools, in third-level institutions, in research institutions, and actually sometimes in business.
And what else? Like you talked about energy there in terms of the children.
Yeah.
What about energy?
Well, I think one of the things that you see, again at the young scientists, but right across the country, young people, PhD graduates coming out of colleges, is they're so attuned to the green energy revolution as well. Yes. And they understand that new opportunities lie there, whether it's in terms of renewable energy, energy efficiency projects. People are right across that in this country, and there's an incredible amount of work going on in the research institutions and the universities.
And could we be at the heart of that?
And young Irish people are picking up on that opportunity. And we as politicians and as government have got to support that, have got to nurture that, and we are doing so. And I think sometimes we actually, Enterprise Ireland is a great organisation, investing in startups, actually taking equity in small businesses that are trying to get off the ground. And nowhere do you see that more but in the area of the green energy revolution. Yeah. We've got a fantastic opportunity here. Look at the ocean energy opportunity, Beaufort and Cork and UCC. An amazing sense of initiative and potential there in Cork. And it's not just in Cork, it's all across the country. So I've got great hopes for young people, for their employment. And, working for big companies, yes, as, Lorraine was saying, but also a lot of people are going to be working for themselves.
Yeah,
exactly. People are going to work freelance. And we've got to get our heads around this, as well as governments and as a Labour Party. We've got to defend people and people's interests in big companies and big employments, but a lot of the people who support us will be working for themselves, and they need protection sometimes as well. So we've got a lot of work to do, and Jed, I think, is very aware of that, and we all are, that we've got to actually respond to the changing nature of work. But I'm just full of optimism for our young people in this country.
Just before we leave this conversation, and talking of energy, are you tired? Are you not wrecked? Here he's talking about a boost after Christmas, and you got the banking inquiry.
I've actually booked a 4-week trekking holiday in Cork to Central North.
Glad to hear it. You find yourself there, at the hostel asking them direct questions. But seriously, going back over, we were talking, Fiona was talking about learning the lessons from the past. So did we learn the lessons from it? Was it important to go back?
I think the key thing about the bank inquiry is that you do not now see that as the end of the process. There are lessons to be learned, and there are lessons for the future, and there are still changes that need to be made. But I think one thing that has not changed has been the Irish people's desire to be able to affordably buy a home of their own someday. And I think that is why it's critical that Labour are in the next government, because Labour are not just about standing up for working families, it's about realising the ambitions of working people, and every working person in this country should be able to afford a home of their own when they go to work.
Can I ask you something honestly? Now, you all switch off to listen to this. When you were going through all of that, the banking inquiry, at any point did you say, is this worth it?
There were very, very challenging moments in it, and I think if the question was to me, do I regret doing it? No, I don't. I think it was an experience that was certainly added to my learning of that crisis period, but I think more importantly, I think the Irish public had to see what actually happened and to have the best story actually told to them. My biggest lesson that I would come away from the bank inquiry is that this can happen again if we don't remember what actually happened and we don't learn from those lessons. And what we now need is a functioning banking system. If I could commend, and it's not just because I'm in Mullingar, the work that Willie Penrose has done on the bankruptcy legislation. And this is dealing with the legacy of the past and the crisis and the household pain that was inflicted right across the country. Work still needs to be done in this area, but we also need to talk about the future. Lorraine was speaking about Apple in Galway. Apple have been in Cork for many decades now. They employ about 4,500 people, and Ireland has been very, very good, and Labour and government has been very good of bringing in foreign direct investment into this country. But we also need to focus upon our own domestic economy. Retail is the biggest single employer in this country. outside of the public sector. We need to regenerate our towns and city centres, getting our high streets now working again. And we also need to develop small and medium enterprises to become larger.
Alex's
A great success story in Cork is Dan and Linda Kiley.
Yeah.
They started out with a very, very small company in Voxpro, 6 people working there, now over 1,000 people, and extending into the United States. They are a great example of how Irish indigenous companies can be grown, and it's critical that
Kieran,
Labour and government to make that happen.
Don't be going on your trekking holiday yet. I have a feeling you'll be busy for the next few weeks. Susan, you also sat on the Banking Inquiry. I read your opinion piece, actually, so I know how strongly you felt about it. But maybe picking up on the idea of, we learned the lessons, where do we go into the future? You know what I was saying to Alex about, let's not do the property thing again. And you're in Sligo, North Leitrim, my mother comes from. So what's the future there? If you were to think of something that would stimulate growth in your area, is it tourism?
Well, certainly I think it probably should have been called the bunker inquiry, because that's what it felt like by the end. And we did have a bit of a bunker mentality, and I would echo what Kieran said about it's not just simply learning the lessons, it's about really applying them. Yeah. And it's about making sure that people who come in to work in the civil service and public service and banks actually are taught about how we need to look out for the warning signs and how we always need to be careful about what we're doing. And then when you look at a place like Sligo, Leitrim, and I have an extended constituency that takes in now West Cavan and South Donegal, probably one of the most beautiful and unspoiled parts of Ireland, although I'm sure there's people who'd compete with me in the audience. But certainly for us, sustainable jobs that would be built on tourism is really what I see as the future. But not tourism in that small word, but as a world-class destination where we combine the best of our culture, our music, our poetry, and of course I've been hugely involved in the William Butler Yeats project for last year, and in understanding that once we know what we want and laying it out to government and saying we have something real to offer here, let's look at Ireland on the west coast as being different to the east coast, and let's say it can be a world-class destination. What we need to do now is work with government, with the Western Development Commission, with Fáilte Ireland, with the Department of Tourism, as we have done in the last year in relation to Yeats, but take that forward and develop that so we can build sustainable jobs where we live. And so we're not just thinking about foreign direct investment, which has a real value, but really where we are, our value is in the authentic beauty and the people and the culture. And it's something extraordinarily Irish. When you go abroad, they are the things that people talk about. Absolutely. They are our brand in the world, and we should be really proud of them, and I'm really proud of them, and that's what I'm passionate about, and I believe that that Northwest piece can stand out and be a different place for the right reasons, and that we need to work together as we have done.
Don't be telling them. It's the most beautiful place in the world. I actually resist writing about it because I don't want anyone to go there. It's stunningly beautiful.
I mean, a bit of us always says, but that's what's perfect about it, is that, you know, but we really do need to sustain that beauty, to not spoil it. And in a way, I'm kind of glad that we haven't done as I said, that big tourism piece. We need now to be very canny about how we build it and how we create something really special for a very special place. And part of the work that we do will be, I hope in the next government, is about understanding the difference between regions in Ireland. Ours is different, the southeast is different, the east is different. And a mature government begins to understand that.
But plenty of potential going into the future.
Absolutely. I mean, problems, but potential is what I certainly recognise. And if you have public representatives that recognise potential, you then can really build and drive and create.
And Minister Hallam, can I go back to you just on the bigger picture that Fiona was painting? So learning the lessons from the past, looking at where we're going in the future. You have a bold and ambitious plan, which is very costly, I assume, about abolishing universal social charge under 72,000. Where's the balance in terms of the economic growth?
Yeah. Well, firstly, we've been very prudent in mapping out the fiscal space we have. That is the amount of money between tax reductions and spend over the next 5 years. We're going to spend it at a ratio of 3 to 1, investing in public services. So the plan that I've laid out last night to reduce universal social charge on all middle and low earners will cost €3 billion. We're going to deploy €9 billion in improving health and education and childcare and all the things we talked about. it is prudent. It is within the parameters validated by the Department of Finance in terms of the fiscal space available. But it is predicated on a steady hand on the tiller. And that's the other side of it.
I have a question for you from
Sure.
somebody on Twitter, Adam Hurley. Why are you capping USC at 72,000?
Well, we capped the benefit at 72,000 because we want to focus this on middle income and low earners. Bluntly, Labour believes in having a taxation system that is fair and that is strong enough to withstand bumps on the road, but also will provide the wherewithal to invest in education, to invest in the arts, to invest in all the things that we as a party stand for. That's why we're going to cap the benefit at 72,000, but up to 100,000, you'll still get that level of benefit.
But over 100,000?
Over 100,000, we start clawing that back, and that's fair. And you get no benefit at all for that small number of people who earn 120,000 euros. They will not pay more tax, but they won't pay less tax under our proposal.
Okay, thank you very much, Fiona, for the question. I need somebody to kind of wrap that up, and I'm kind of pouncing on people, so Alex, how about you? Just any of the rest of you come up know that I'm doing that, so keep your tweets coming in. Hashtag LP16, hashtag StandUp16. Thanks, Alex.
Well, thanks very much. I mean, could there be a greater advocate for the Northwest and